Hi, everybody. We're in chapter 14 of Contemporary Management. We're talking about leadership. Leadership is one of the four actions that a responsible manager is involved with, and we're going to explain the specifics about that, even though we covered it in chapter 1 in some detail. So, if you go to slide 4, the nature of leadership. Leadership is the process by which a person exerts influence over others and inspires, motivates, and directs their activities to achieve group or organizational goals. This is in line with the book that I assigned you, the Dale Carnegie book, How to Get People to Do What You Want Them to Do. You have to inspire them and at the same time exert influence. And yes, you have to manipulate at times, and that's part of the game. A leader is an individual who is able to exert influence over other people and help the organization achieve its goals, which is a very, very important concept that you have to know for the nature of leadership. Slide number 6, personal leadership style and managerial tasks. Everybody has different styles: clothing, foods that they eat, music that they like, and leadership styles are also different. Some people are more autocratic, some people are more laid back. So a personal leadership style is a specific way or ways in which a manager chooses to influence others. And in the book by Dale Carnegie that I had signed you, you've seen different methods, things that work and things that don't work. It shapes the way that managers approach the other principal tasks of management. Here's a leader, a servant leader, a leader who has a strong desire to serve and work for the benefit of others. This is a very, very nice way of doing business. However, I do caution you, from my many years of experience, when you're too much of a servant, everybody steps on you. So be careful how much you go on the limb for people. You have to make sure that it's done within reason and it does not impact your getting the work done. Because if you're busy helping everybody and doing what you need to do for everybody and neglecting your own duties, then you'll be held responsible for the things that you need to do. Slide number 8, leadership across cultures. European managers tend to be more people-oriented than American or Japanese managers. I could tell you this, that most of the managers I had were mainly business, very little into speaking to you as a human being, get things done. I kind of felt like a waiter in a restaurant. Japanese managers are group-oriented, while U.S. managers focus more on profitability. Time horizons are also affected by cultures. Some cultures, without getting into particulars, to be politically correct, are more laid back, as I say, chilled out in the vernacular. Other cultures are more, regimented with their time. Slide number 9, sources of managerial power, and we'll go into these: referent, expert, reward, coercive, and legitimate. Slide number 10, the key to leadership, legitimate power, is the authority that a manager has by virtue of his or her position in an organizational hierarchy. It's legitimate. He's the CEO, he's director of marketing. Reward power, the ability of a manager to give or withhold tangible and intangible rewards. And again, depending how high up the totem pole you are as a manager, your reward power is greater. Obviously, if you are high up there near the CEO, you can hire and fire pretty much at free will. And that's an important thing to notice. Next slide. Coercive power is the ability of a manager to punish others. I don't like to use the word punishment. However, at times this is what managers do and need to do in order to keep people in line. And I would just say it's kind of a consequence. If you come late, if you don't do your work, and you have to punish or eventually fire someone, it's not so much a punishment. It is that you need to get work done. And if you don't get work done, there's no one to blame but yourself. However, be aware that overuse of coercive power can even result in dangerous work conditions and, of course, can lead people to make mistakes, to feel uncomfortable, and examples are verbal reprimand, pay cuts, and dismissals. Now remember, gentlemen and ladies out there, you have to do things privately. Anytime to reprimand someone, do it privately. Slide 12, expert power. Power that is based on special knowledge, skills, and expertise that the leader possesses. And this is something that gains respect when you know what you're doing and you're good at something. You're good at crunching numbers, you're good at multitasking, you're great at computers, you're good at Excel, whatever the skill is, people respect that. And you become the go-to person. And of course, your power and esteem rises in the organization, tends to be used in guiding or a coaching manner. And of course, being a coach is always the best way to manage, because then people look up to you as opposed to being afraid of you. And that's something you should always keep in mind. Slide 13, referent power is the power that comes from subordinates and coworkers' respect and admiration and loyalty, possessed by managers who are likable and whom subordinates wish to use as a role model. Again, this is a great thing. However, and this is the big proverbial but, you as the manager should not be busy with worrying about whether or not you're liked. Although it's great to be liked, this is not a political race. You're not running for office where you need to get votes. You have to get the job done. Obviously, try to do it in the most respectful, meaningful manner. Do it with grace. But being nice is important, but also getting the job is very, very important. And when you're too nice and you overlook things too much, you end up getting in trouble. So it has to be a fine balance. And again, what I'm saying now comes with over 25 years of work experience. So kind of seen both sides, being too nice, being too tough. And of course, now I'm hopefully somewhere in the middle with that. Slide 14, empowerment. It's the process of giving employees at all levels in the organization the authority to make decisions, be responsible for their outcomes, improve quality, and cut costs. Now you have to understand that it's very important not to micromanage. That means give as much power as you can to employees without making them too independent from you. Because if they're too independent, then they'll take liberties and do things that are outside their purview. And understand, companies like Zappos empowers their frontline employees, the people to pick up the phones, with a tremendous amount of empowerment. They're able to make decisions, and that's very important, especially in a customer service level. And I definitely do recommend it. However, within reason, make sure that people know exactly up to which point they are allowed to do certain things, because otherwise they'll just go willy-nilly, and then you'll be in a lot of trouble, and then you won't be able to keep track of things. Trait model, slide 15, focused on identifying personal characteristics that cause effective leadership. So there's certain traits that people have that make them great leaders. Many traits are the result of skills and knowledge, and effective leaders do not necessarily possess all of these traits, but some of them are also inborn. If you look at slide 16, table 14.1, traits and personal characteristics related to effective leadership. Trait, intelligence. The description of that helps managers understand complex issues and solve problems. That's a very important skill to have. Knowledge and expertise helps managers make good decisions and discover ways to increase efficiency and effectiveness. Good decision making is key and vital. Dominance helps managers influence their subordinates to achieve organizational goals. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be this tough, mean kind of person to get things done. Many times people's personality, they project a persona of dominance. There's something about them. They have a large presence. Not necessarily in the physical sense, but in being in a room, people just are drawn to you, and you're able to just get people to come to you. Self-confidence, this is key in anything in life, whether it's spiritual growth, whether it's material growth. Anything that you pursue in any endeavor requires a healthy dose of self-confidence. And never shall self-confidence and arrogance cross paths, because then you're in trouble. Self-confidence is knowing that you know what you're doing, but being humble enough to understand that you need others to help you. Contributes to managers effectively influencing subordinates and persisting when faced with obstacles or difficulties. High energy helps managers deal with many demands they face. You have to be energetic. You can't be lethargic and blasé. You have to come in, smile, laugh, drink a few coffees or Red Bull if you have to. Tolerance for stress helps managers deal with uncertainty and make difficult decisions. And that's very important, because many times you're just stuck. Somebody comes in, interrupts you. I have this at work. Many times people just non-stop interruptions. And many of those interruptions are things that are really unimportant. Many times I'll preface the phone call with, is this really important? Does this require my attention now? If yes, I'll do it. But if not, please, can it wait? Because most of the time it's really nickel and dime kind of stuff that they can figure out on their own. They're just not confident enough, or sometimes just too lazy to think on their own. They're just so used to having managers make decisions for them. And that's something that's important. Integrity and honesty helps managers behave ethically and earn their subordinates' trust and confidence, which is always important. Maturity helps managers avoid acting selfishly, controlling their feelings, and admit that they have made a mistake. and it's important to always be able to make sure that you admit that you make a mistake. Don't be too prideful. Pride before the fall. Behavioral model, slide 17, identifies the two basic types of behavior that many leaders engaged in to influence their subordinates. Consideration, initiating structure. Consideration, slide number 18, behavior indicating that a manager trusts, respects, and cares about subordinates. It's very important, especially in the military. I've heard this many times on many of these documentaries where generals and leaders and majors and colonels were loved because they actually cared for their men, and that's an important thing. If you feel that your manager cares for you, you tend to listen to him. If you feel that your manager, your leader, is just somebody who's crass and just uninterested in your welfare, then of course you're going to behave in kind. Initiating structure, behavior that managers engage in to ensure that work gets done, subordinates perform their jobs acceptably, and the organization is efficient and effective. In other words, getting the job done, making sure that things run smoothly. Contingency models. Whether or not a manager is an effective leader is the result of the interplay between what the manager is like and what he does and the situation in which the leadership takes place. There's many different factors at play. Slide 20, Fiedler's model. Effective leadership is contingent on both the characteristics of the leader and on the situation. Or situation, the mood. Leader style is a manager characteristics approach to leadership. Now, slide 21, relationship-oriented style versus task-oriented style. So there are two opposing styles. Relationship-oriented style, leaders concerned with developing good relationships with their subordinates and to be liked by them. We spoke about that and how good it could be. And then there's the task-oriented style. Leaders whose primary concern is to ensure that subordinates perform at high levels and the job gets done. And, of course, that's less friendly. I personally like a middle ground between the two. Slide 22, leader-member relations extends to which followers like, trust, and are loyal to their leader. Obviously, it's good when there's good relationship. Task structure extends to which the work to be performed is clear-cut so that a leader's subordinates know what needs to be accomplished and how to go about doing it, which is very important. You could be a nice leader and great, but be a lousy leader because you just don't give clear instructions and you don't know how to communicate well. And you don't understand what a person can and cannot accomplish. So you may overwhelm people, or as I like to say, underwhelm them. Slide 23. Position power. The amount of legitimate reward and coercive power that a leader has by virtue of his or her position in an organization. Where are you in the organization? Are you in charge of the mailroom? Or are you the CEO of the organization? Do you have a high-level managerial position, a junior managerial position? Those are things that are very important to take into consideration. Determinant of how favorable a situation is for leading. Slide 24, you can look for yourself. There's a chart here with good and poor scores for leader-member relationships. Slide 25, House Path Goals Theory, a contingency model of leadership proposing that effective leaders can motivate subordinates to achieve goals by clearly identifying the outcomes that subordinates are trying to obtain for their jobs. So you define what the goal is for each person. Rewarding subordinates with these outcomes for high performance and attainment of work goals. Clarifying the paths leading to the attainment of work goals, making sure people know what they need to do, how to get there. Slide 26, path goal leadership behaviors, directive behaviors, setting goals, assigning tasks, showing subordinates how to complete tasks, rolling up your sleeves and getting things done, showing them how to do it, and taking concrete steps to improve performance. Supportive behavior, expressing concern for subordinates and looking out for their best interests. Slide 27, participative behavior, give subordinates a say in matters and decisions that affect them. We spoke about this briefly with management by objective. Achievement-oriented behavior, setting challenging goals, expecting that they be met, and believing in subordinates' capabilities, which is, of course, very important. If you don't believe in your employees, they're not going to believe in themselves. Slide 28, leadership substitute, characteristics of a subordinate or of a situation or context that acts in place of the influence of a leader and makes leadership unnecessary. Members of an organization sometimes can perform highly without a manager exerting influence over them. Between you and me, most of the time it doesn't really apply unless you're dealing with very, very highly intelligent, highly motivated people that can do things on their own. Many times, in an organization, you're not going to have the same level of intelligence necessarily in every employee. And again, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but some people are more intelligent, more intuitive, more they have greater abilities of deductive reasoning. Others have less. So it's kind of hard to get to this goal. Slide 29. The leadership substitute models. Possible substitutes can be found in characteristics of subordinates, their skills, experience, motivation, and of course, characteristics of context, the extent to which work is interesting and fun. We spoke about this in Theory Y. If your workplace is boring, full of fear, full of fright, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. Oh, everybody makes mistakes. People forget things. They forget to look at emails. They forget processes. Many times we're just overwhelmed with a million different things going on. But you can't have, work can't become drudgery. It has to be something that's enjoyable. And if it's not, it won't last, and management will not get its job done. Slide 30. It's kind of a contingency model of leadership. A couple of different points. Fiedler's contingency model. The focus is two leadership styles, relationship and task-oriented, and the kinds of situations in which each kind of leader will be most effective. The key contingencies, things that it depends on, is whether relationship-oriented or task-oriented leader is effective is contingent on the situation, meaning sometimes a situation requires somebody to be task-oriented. We have a bunch of unbridled, unruly employees. People have been used to being managed poorly, unused to any management, so sometimes you have to bring the hammer down and even resort to making an example of someone. House path goal theory describes how effective leaders motivate their followers. Motivation. It's really a function of Victor Vroom. The behavior the manager should engage in is to be effective leaders are contingent on the nature of the subordinates and the work they do, because you motivate or you don't motivate. Leaders substitute model describes when leadership is unnecessary. The contingencies are whether leadership is necessary for subordinates to perform highly. It's contingent on characteristics of the subordinates and the situation. Of course, the situation has to be where you don't have to manage much, and the people themselves have to be the type that don't need the management, are intelligent, are motivated on their own, and feel that they're connected to the work and take pride in the work. Slide 31. Transformational leadership. I like this. Leadership that makes subordinates aware of the importance of their jobs. How often do we come to work and feel like we're just unimportant? If I call in sick for the next 2 weeks, nobody will even know that I'm there. And that's a terrible feeling. And once you feel unimportant, you feel like your job is of no consequence, then of course you will perform in kind. So again, make subordinates aware of the importance of their jobs, how important they are for the organization, and how necessary it is for them to perform those jobs as best they can so that the organization can attain its goals. Again, relevance. People have to be made to feel important. Number 2, make subordinates aware of their own needs for personal growth, development, and accomplishment. Once you feel important, you take stock of what you need to be more effective, what you need to become more of a leader or of a better employee. Motivates workers to work for the good of the organization. Once you know it's important to be a part of the fabric, not just for their own personal gain or benefit. And this is something very, very hard because many times people are very selfish. They live in their own little silos, and then of course departments become silo-oriented or silo mentality. Then something called the silo mentality will prevail in an organization. That's something dangerous that will cause divisions within the organization. And I don't mean divisions like, the Eastern, Western, Northern. I mean divisions, people fighting with each other. Slide 33, being a charismatic leader. Having worked out there for more than 25 years, I could tell you the leaders that have charisma, the ones that make you interested, are the ones that you'll do anything for. Charismatic leader is an enthusiastic, self-confident, transformational leader, able to clearly communicate his vision of how good things could be, and puts his money where his mouth is, walks the walk, talks the talk. All these things are only accomplished if you're actually capable of doing it and showing people that I could do it and nothing's beneath my dignity. Slide 34, the charismatic leader, being excited and clearly communicating excitement to subordinates. Excitement is infectious. Openly sharing information with employees so that everyone is aware of problems and the need for change. Being upfront, being blunt is good. Intellectual stimulation, yes, very important. Slide 35, behavioral leader engages in to make followers be aware of problems and view these problems in new ways consistent with the leader's vision. And that's important to stimulate people's intellect, to get them to think like you think, show them how you think, explain things so that they can start thinking like you. Slide 36, developmental consideration. Managers supports and encourages subordinates, giving them opportunities to enhance their skills and capabilities and to grow and excel on the job. Slide 37, transactional leaders, leadership that motivates subordinates by rewarding them for high performance and reprimanding them for low performance. Sometimes this needs to be done. You can't just keep excusing bad behavior, because bad behavior will continue to be bad and won't go away. Gender and leadership, not to get too sticky on this subject, but men and women are drastically different in the way they lead. The number of women managers is rising, but is still relatively low in the top levels of management. Stereotypes suggest women are supportive and concerned with interpersonal relations. Similarly, men are seen as task-focused. I could tell you this is not the case. Women could be task-focused. I've worked for some women that could have easily been taskmasters in Egypt, and worked for men who were super supportive. So it goes both ways. But the management styles are different. The moods of leaders, emotional intelligence and leadership. Slide 39. Groups whose leaders experience positive moods had better coordination. Again, when people are in bad moods, everyone becomes a part of that bad mood. Groups whose leaders experienced negative moods exerted more effort, and of course it was more difficult. Emotional intelligence helps leaders develop a vision for their firm, helps motivate subordinates to commit to the vision, and of course energizes subordinates to work to achieve the vision itself. We are now done for this chapter. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.